Hi everyone. One of the things I said I would do is to record a previous example of a critique that has done well. So today I'm going to show you that. First of all, we've got the copyright sign. Okay, so this was the article that was that the students needed to critique. It's called "Why is Pain Still Not Being Assessed Adequately? Results of a Pain Prevalence Study in a University Hospital in Sweden," and it's published in the Journal of Clinical Nursing. Um, so we're going to have a look at the person who has done that. So first of all, when we have a look at this assignment, and it was done by a man, so I will continue to say he, we can see that there's a nice introduction. I have both permission to use this assignment and I've removed the name of the student. So the student has said, started with a broad statement such as nursing research is a concept that has emerged in response to a range of factors in nursing and within the broader field of healthcare. So just a lovely, lovely, lovely advances in technology. Just a big statement that talks about why the change in the way we do our practice means that research needs to be there. So down here he says this in turn requires the nurse to be both competent consumers, informed producers of quality research. Fundamental to this process is an understanding of the concept of evidence-based practice, which utilizes research to provide the foundation of clinical practice. So this is all introduction still. So you will need to do some sort of introduction. Now this is a pretty developed introduction. You'll see in the next paragraph here, this is where he actually introduces the paper, and this is what we mainly see in pass and credit papers. This is a distinction paper. So then the student goes on to say, this essay will begin with a critical analysis of a specific paper in order to demonstrate how evaluation of research should proceed. Systematic critical analysis provides a framework for evaluating the validity and usefulness of the research in question and allowing contextualization of the information within the broader field of pain management as it relates to nursing practice. So you see, what he's done here is he's actually related it back to the nursing practice. So that's his introduction. Those two paragraphs are his introduction. You will create some sort of introduction, but what's important is this stuff here. Okay, that first statement, it's very nice. You might just have a single sentence, which is what we mainly find, but this person has created two paragraphs and is able to do that within their 2,000 words. Okay, now we go down into the paper. So, excuse me. What he's then gone on to do is tell us why it's important to do the systematic approach. You'll find something similar, and is spoken about, the sort of things that should be looked at here. Now you've got things in your books. I've put things up in module 3, and in the article, there's a screencast that I've done further on. You'll be able to see where I've talked about that as well. But so the sort of things that he's saying here, so title and abstract should reflect blah blah blah. He's telling us what should be in a critique. Now it's important to note when you're doing a critique, you're not commenting on the content. You're commenting on whether the study was done in a robust and rigorous way. Okay, you're not saying, "Oh, look, it's good they did a thing on pain. People's pain isn't well." What you're really trying to do is you're trying to look at whether the study was put together well, and you're critiquing each section. So you're going to critique the title. So you're going to say things like, is it concise and yet informative? Do you have an idea of what is happening in the study? And yes, we do in this case. And so we then go across to his assignment, and if we look at the title there, he's given us a title. So there down here he says the title is descriptive of the study undertaken and also poses a question that outlines one of the broader themes of the paper. Information and qualifications of the authors are provided and the paper appears in a peer-reviewed journal, suggesting a reasonable level of credibility. So do you see he's not saying he's critiquing the title but not the content of it. Okay, and that's something that's quite hard for students to get their head around. So sometimes titles indicate research approach, that sort of thing. He then goes on to the literature review. So remember we talked about we'll talk about some articles have an introduction and then have a literature review. Some go, and this one's called background, some go directly to a literature review. So it just depends on journal preference. So this is the literature review here. The introduction, there might be some parts of the literature review as well, but it should be in this background or literature review section. So what I'd be looking for in that paper is to look at whether there's a conceptual framework or have they talked about a framework of some description, and we'll have a look at that in a minute, and also look at like, are the concepts well defined? Have they talked about that in the literature? Are there lots of sources used? Lots of recent sources. This is a 2011 paper, so it the sources that they've got there are fine. Does it seem to be a balanced review? Does the author or authors summarize it, that kind of thing? So let's go and have a look at his paper. So in the literature review, 8 studies are presented as relevant to the current study insofar as they focus on pain prevalence in all hospital departments. They'll range from 98 to 2010, and then he's commented, and this is really good, with the majority of studies being older. Now, many students just leave that at that, and that's what he's done. You could, so one of the places where he might have picked up a couple more marks is to say something like, in the next sentence after that highlighted sentence, is to say something to the tune of, however, the studies that were used were relevant to the particular area because of blah 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 blah, and you're only going to know if they're relevant is if you should go and seek out those source papers if you can and get them, or at least read their abstracts and have a think about why they were included. So you need to make a decision, come to a decision about why they were included. Okay, and then you'll understand why they were included and you can make that comment. Now that is the difference. A comment of that nature is the difference between what's a nice distinction. This is a basic comment he's saying here, but there's no critique attached to that. Okay, so we haven't got a lot of critique in that area. He then goes on to talk about, he does a bit of an analysis of the study, of the literature review. He's done a nice job there. Okay, some direction. So he goes on then to sort of gather the threads together. Some direction is indicated, however, with the aims and rationale of the study are assessed in conjunction with literature review. So that's what he's saying, and we'll see that here. Okay, you could go and get that other paper and have a read of it alongside this screencast. So then he goes on and he critiques the aims. Sometimes you'll find hypotheses, a research question, aims, objectives, that sort of stated purpose, those sorts of things. Okay, so go and have a look at those and do the critiquing appropriate to those. Okay, he's made some good comments there. Okay. this is really good here. Some limitations are evident here. For example, the literature review fails to define key terms such as pain prevalence, pain education, and pain management, and there is little attempt to contextualize current research or refine the study's focus. Now, that critique is why this student's picking up quite a nice mark. Okay, he's not a he's just jumped into the distinction. He's not close to a high distinction, but he's done well. Okay. As Richardson Tenchard contends, a well-conducted and comprehensive literature review allows the researcher to develop an extensive knowledge of the subject. So do you see what he's doing? He's gone through using, and you'll find those links in the website in module 3 about how to do the critique, and he's then actually done the critique, and then he's actually doing some critical analysis back on about what they didn't do. So he's saying here's what they did, but here's what they didn't do, and these other researchers or these texts here these texts here have said that he should have, and he didn't do that. Okay, so he then goes on to talk about further problems. Okay, so here we go. According to Jura et al. 2011, the methodology should outline in detail the techniques used to conduct the study. Blah, 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 blah. So remember at the beginning he told us what should be in a critique, and then he's telling us along what should be in that critique. Then he makes the links in his own work from the article about what he saw in that. Okay, so there he goes on and says little information is given, however it is possible to infer from the discussion of procedure that all patients deemed suitable were given a survey to complete. Okay, so he's had to do a bit of thinking here, but he's done some nice critical analysis. All right. He's then gone on and said, though it's important that evidence from descriptive studies is considered to be weaker in comparison to experimental research. Another sentence to suggest that down here might have been, however, there are some sorts of research that are not that would not make good experimental studies because of the type of research and the ethics involved. He's then telling us what the methodology and and the sampling method of the study, and he'll then go on. There's some limitations inherent. So he tells you what should be there. He tells you what is there, and then he critiques what they could have done better. And in each section, can you see that's what he's doing? Additionally, because the survey was limited to a single institution, there's no mechanism for mitigating institutional biases. Lovely, very nice sort of critique there. Okay, data analysis. Don't get much detail. Presentation isn't accord with state aims, blah, 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 blah. Okay, then he's going on to discuss the discussion. It acknowledged that in comparison of all results is not possible due to differences in method employed by previous studies. So that's good. He's demonstrating that the authors can see that there's some issues there as well. Okay, so the second section here of the discussion is talking about quality improvement of pain management, and he's looking at whether they've done a good job at that. Now, so here's where he critiques that previous paragraph. Although these are undoubtedly important issues, it is important. It is difficult to see how they flow from the given results, and that's good because they're making a generalized comment in the article, and you can go and have a look at that. As previously stated, the use of descriptive research design gives a little indication of causality amongst variables. Therefore, it is unclear what evidence underlies some of the assumptions. Okay, then he goes on, and this is effectively his conclusion. Goes on to say, preceding critical analysis demonstrates systematic appraisal, strengths and weaknesses have been shown, blah, it supports evidence-based practice. So, It's this process, yeah. So that's how he's been able to do this and pick up quite a good mark. Hope this has been helpful.